Over 55 retirement communities are popular among some retirees, and there's no doubt they offer a lot of benefits. Those include active lifestyles tailored to older folks that include parties, classes, social events, you name it. It can be a very active lifestyle for people over 55. Exterior property maintenance provided by the association. You don't have to cut the grass, trim the hedges, clean the gutters, shovel snow. That's a relief. Safety and security, especially if the neighborhood is gated and it has a full-time security staff. Various amenities, including pools, gymnasiums, walking trails, and sometimes even golf courses. Some retirement communities are also even relatively affordable, although I wonder if that's even true anymore. There's no doubt those are appealing benefits, but that doesn't mean retirement communities are perfect worlds. As is the case with so many other things in life, if it seems too perfect on the surface, there are often hidden landmines just beneath the glossy exterior. Yes, even in a retirement community, it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows. A lot of people who choose to move to these retirement communities rely primarily on the opinions of salespeople and on marketing material in making their decisions. A visit or two to the community often seals the deal. That's why we need to have discussions on the darker sides of retirement communities, and there are several. I've come up with 5. I'm going to go into some detail on each. If you or someone you love is considering one of these retirement communities, wherever it is, this video could save you from a very expensive mistake. First landmine, the financial landmine. This may be the biggest single drawback to 55 plus communities. All the benefits of these communities must be paid for. That's a key factor. It usually happens through a series of costs, not just one. That can make the cost of owning in one of these communities difficult to determine up front. There's several to be aware of. For example, obviously buying into the community. Depending on where the property is, the age, condition, what amenities it has, this can range anywhere from $200,000 to well over $1 million. They used to be a lot cheaper years ago, and I think it made more sense back in the 70s, 80s, maybe the 90s. But they have gotten more expensive, especially as amenities have been added. There are also commonly upfront fees. They vary from a few hundred to a few $1,000s. When I was in the mortgage industry, we used to refer to these as junk fees. It was basically just a way to get more money out of the customer up front. And who knows what this money goes for. I pay close attention to whatever they say that it goes for. And anyway, maybe you won't want to pay it. This is another big one, the monthly maintenance fees, and you will have them in these communities. All those services you get, landscaping, the gym, the pool, they all have to be paid for. Rocket Mortgage reported these fees can be as high as $800 per month. That's a number that I've seen elsewhere on the web, so I don't question it. They can be as low as $200 per month, but I suspect the services that you'll get in that kind of a neighborhood probably will be minimal. Special assessments. All HOA type neighborhoods have special assessments, and they periodically impose these charges. Let's say that they want to pave all the roads in the neighborhood. There'll be a special assessment. Maybe they want to replace all the roofs in a certain part of the neighborhood. Special assessment. That's the kind of thing. Maybe they want to improve the recreational facilities, renovate the pool, maybe replace it. I don't know. There's an unlimited number of things that they could charge a special assessment for. Special amenity fees. Let's say that there's a golf course. It's not mandatory that you belong, but if you do, they may charge you $5,000 or $10,000 up front and then several $1,000s per year. So that's something to be aware of. There are 2 important points to remember with these costs. First is that they are variable, and you can fully expect that they will go up as the years pass. Second, you may find them difficult to manage after you've lived in the neighborhood for several years. Be sure to think long term when you're evaluating these costs. Don't assume that the fees you're paying up front are going to stick over the next 5 or 10 years. Build in your own inflation factor, or if it's an existing neighborhood, ask people who live there, how much have the fees gone up since you've lived here, and how long have you lived here? That last point is a good lead-in for the next landmine. The difficulty in selling the property, landmine. Though you may think of a retirement community as your forever home, life might get in the way of your intentions. For example, after a series of fee increases, you may eventually find yourself unable or unwilling to afford to continue living in the community. You may just want to spend your money on other things, maybe more money for travel, visiting with your children and grandchildren. You just don't want to be paying it to the association all the time. Eventually, you or your spouse may need to move into an assisted living community due to deteriorating health. Your spouse might die, and then the community no longer makes sense to live in. You may think that selling a home in a retirement community is just as simple as any other property. Yeah, I've owned 3 houses in the past, sold them all, never had a problem. That's not always the case with retirement communities. There's a few things to keep in mind. The 55 plus age restriction will limit the number of people who could be potential buyers. They have to be 55 or older. That's it. In that, you're knocking out the prime 35 to 54-year-old age bracket who buy most of the houses. So that's a big chunk of the market gone. Here's something else to consider. An increasing number of older folks want to age in place. And that further reduces the pool of buyers because now it cuts into the people over 55. Realtor.com reports that 84% of baby boomers and 78% of Gen Xers want to age in place in the homes where they live now. And I'll have links in the notes below for the reference information that I'm using here. Another point, retirement communities become less desirable as they age, especially if property maintenance is fair or poor. May be a great place to live when it's only 2 years old, but after 15 years, it might start to look tired and run down. You'll get a different group of people coming in who have different ideas. They may open it up to people who are less affluent, and then you're going to notice changes in the neighborhood. That's not to be bigoted against people who have less ability to afford the neighborhood. It's just to mean there may not be the financial resources to maintain the community to the standards you came to know. Also, new retirement communities. This is really important, especially if you buy into an area like in the Carolinas, Florida, wherever, where there's a lot of retirement communities. There are new ones springing up all the time. And that makes the older communities less desirable. Maybe your neighborhood is brand new when you moved in. 5 years later, it's not brand new. They're building a new project 5 miles down the road. Everybody who's coming into the area wants to go to the new one. They don't want to come to yours. So that's going to make it more difficult for you to sell your property, and you'll probably get less. Some retirement communities may even place restrictions on sales. That can include charging an exit fee to you as the property seller. Or even, I think this is very common, is to maintain a right of first refusal on any property sale. Basically, because it is a restricted neighborhood, the HOA is going to require that anybody who might buy your property is going to have to pass muster with them. They're going to have to meet the qualifications for age, income, whatever the qualifications are. So it's not going to be a free market sale situation. Number 3, the relocation landmine. I don't know how many people think about this, but I think about it a lot, and this alone would keep me from ever relocating to a retirement community. Many of the most desirable and affordable retirement communities are located in other states, or at least far away from large metropolitan areas. This is done to take advantage of favorable weather, let's say in the case of the Sun Belt communities, natural amenities, maybe proximity to the beach or the mountains, whatever. Greater availability of land. These projects are usually very large. They require a lot of land that's not available in metropolitan regions. Also the lower cost of that land. But that might require making a difficult decision to move away from your current home area. That might mean moving away from close friends and family members, including your grandchildren. If you have kids and grandkids living in your area, think really hard before you make that move, because you're going to see a lot less of them, even if you promise that you're going to see each other regularly. You could be moving into an area that requires a decent amount of travel to get to quality healthcare facilities. The best hospital may be in a city 150 miles away. You're going to have to be ready to deal with that. When you're younger and healthier, may not be a problem. But as you get older, it's going to be an issue because you may not be able to drive there. It may also require that you establish an entirely new set of healthcare providers. My wife and I have been living in this community for 11 years. It's not a retirement community, but we've established our own panel of healthcare professionals. We're very comfortable with them. We wouldn't want to change them. If we had to move to a retirement community in another state, that's exactly what would happen. Don't want to do it. Something to think about. I don't know if a lot of people do. There may also be greater distances to commercial airports for travel purposes. Got to think about that. And then also greater distances to metropolitan cultural amenities like theaters, concert venues, a diverse set of restaurants. You don't want to be eating in the same 3 or 4 restaurants all the time. Also, major league sports venues. Think about all of these things when you're going to move to one of these communities. If it's particularly remote, even though they have amenities on site, what you may be giving up might be more substantial than what you're picking up. If you don't have many attachments to your current community, none of this may be a problem for you. But if you have deep roots in your current hometown, moving to a retirement community can be a serious emotional shock. Number 4, the HOA landmine. I love talking about this because although I don't live in a retirement community, I have lived in several HOA neighborhoods. So anyway, this is very relevant in these 55 plus retirement communities because they are first and foremost homeowners association communities. They may be set up as retirement communities specifically, but the HOA structure overshadows and underlies the entire arrangement. I have lived in several HOAs, including my current neighborhood, but I do know that I know this beast well, and it can be a beast. Though I have to say the one I'm living in now is probably the least restrictive and intrusive I've ever been in, but I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's in New Hampshire. The motto here is live free or die, and I think most people do live that way. I have never lived in a place where I felt so comfortable being me, so not judged compared to other places, and I think that just permeates everything in New Hampshire, and that's why I'll probably never leave here. But anyway, my guess is that most people have a favorable view of HOAs. That's because they either don't live in an HOA neighborhood or because they do live in one and they've never run afoul of the board and its endless litany of rules and regulations. The HOA landmine is complicated by the fact that it is a retirement community, and that'll add even more restrictions. As a general rule, HOAs can and typically do restrict the following activities. What color you can paint your house. My wife and I lived in it was single family houses, but it was an HOA neighborhood, and they restricted the color scheme of your house. We had to repaint our house because the beautiful colors we picked that were not out of line for the neighborhood weren't exactly within the 4 patterns that they had established for the neighborhood. So please be aware of that. We ran into trouble with that. The erection of outbuildings on your property. Let's think here about gazebos, tool sheds, even a jungle gym for your grandkids. The number and type of vehicles that can be parked in your driveway. The ability to park vehicles on the street, particularly overnight. The number of people living in your home. Certain activities like, let's say you want to have a fire pit in your backyard. No go. Again, because they're retirement communities, there are even more restrictions. For example, they can limit what changes you can make to the interior of your home, not just the exterior. Whether or not family members can stay in your home and for how long. They may have a limit of a weekend, a week, a month. Probably won't be much longer than that. The ages of the people who might stay in your home. They don't like people under 18 years old. And if you've got grandkids, that could be a problem. What kind of vehicles your guests are parking on your property. Noise levels, particularly after certain hours. If you have 7 or 8 people in the house, they're going to be making more noise. It's the spring or the fall, the windows are open, the neighbors hear it, they don't like it, they file a complaint, you're getting fined. Need to be aware of all these things. Most of us are comfortable when our neighbors are bound by restrictions, but we're a lot less forgiving when those rules apply to us. Freedom matters at every stage of life, and especially in retirement. I know to me right now, freedom matters a lot. I am thoroughly enjoying it in all respects. And it's not something I would give up lightly. And think about that if you're going to go to a retirement community. While they're protecting you, the HOAs are also limiting your freedom. You'll need to decide how much freedom you want to give up in exchange for whatever it is the retirement community is providing for you. That makes reading all documents associated with the purchase and ownership of the property in a retirement community absolutely mandatory. I can't emphasize this enough. This is true in HOAs in general, but especially in a retirement community. I don't care if you're a slow reader and it'll take you all week to plow through it all. It's something you must do. And you must understand what it is you're signing up for. Because once you sign at the closing, it's over. You can't turn back. You can't challenge the rules. I have never heard of rules in an HOA being changed unless somebody's able to take over the HOA, fill it with their own people, and change all the voters' minds. But very difficult. I wouldn't even plan on it. Unfortunately, these documents are dense and they contain a lot of complicated language and restrictions. Don't be afraid to drop a few $100 to bring the documents to be thoroughly reviewed and explained to you in plain language by a qualified attorney. That will be money well spent. Finally, landmine number 5, the detachment from the real world landmine. Maybe this is a personal thing with me, but if you live in a 55 plus community or any other type of restricted community, you might observe that there are a disproportionate number of people who are not living in the real world. And I think you know what I'm talking about without me going into detail. That's not just your perception, it is the reality. They're not living in the real world because retirement communities are not set up to be the real world. It's more like Oz for old people. They cater to younger, healthier retirees who are generally more prosperous than the average person, certainly than the average retiree. The physical structure and activities in the community are tailored specifically for this demographic. On the surface, that may be exactly what you're looking for, but there are a few things you'll be giving up for that privilege. As I mentioned earlier, you may be giving up proximity to family, friends, your home community, or maybe you lived all of your life, and even metropolitan amenities. There will be very little interaction with young people, almost as if they don't exist, and we know that in the real world they do. There will be very little interaction with working people, and if anybody's in the real world, it's working people, and that's not what you're going to see, other than maybe the people who are taking care of the house and the property in your neighborhood. The same will be true for retirees who are in less than excellent health. Probably they move out. So it's mainly the younger, 55 to 70 retirees who are in good or excellent health. In summary, you have very little contact with people who live real lives, and that's why it could seem like you're surrounded by people who aren't in the real world. As a result of the loss of the people and places I just listed, it is possible to find yourself socially isolated in a community of theoretically like-minded and like-positioned people, but it is. I don't know about you, but I personally find it uplifting to hear children playing outside and even a modest amount of street traffic, including motorcycles. It just makes me feel like I'm living in a place where people are out living life and things are happening. I don't think you're going to see that in a retirement community. The emphasis is on quiet, and of course, there are no kids around. If you prefer more diversity in the people in your life, hanging out with too many people similar to you can get old in a hurry. There's also the fact that in a controlled community, people form cliques. Don't gloss over this. Because of the conformity of the neighborhood, these cliques can take on exaggerated importance. It may not be possible to avoid these groups, and you can experience a hellish existence if you're on the outside of one or more cliques. You may even find yourself increasingly isolated as you get older, or unable to participate in many activities because of physical limitations, or maybe even financial limitations. One more thing to consider here is that it's very important as we get older, more of our friends and neighbors die or they move into assisted living facilities. Though you may be well connected socially in the early years in your retirement community, after a few years, that situation can gradually degrade, and the people that you knew and knew well are gone, and you're constantly having to recycle through friends, and you may find it more difficult to relate to those new friends as you get older. Here are my final thoughts on retirement community landmines. I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush. Retirement communities aren't all bad. For the right person with the right finances, health, and expectations, they can be wonderful. I'll be the first to admit that. The danger isn't the communities themselves. It's moving in without fully understanding the trade-offs. Before choosing a retirement community, read every contract and document carefully. Again, get legal help if you need it. Talk to long-term residents, not just sales staff. You know what the salespeople are there for. They're not credible sources. Ask what happens if your health or finances change. How difficult is it going to be for you to sell the house and move out? Most importantly, ask yourself if this place supports the life you want to live in 5, 10, or 20 years from now, not just the next 5 years. Are you thinking about moving into a retirement community, or do you live in one now? Leave your comments below and let's chat about it. I might even use your comment in a future video. If you like the video you're watching, hit the like button below and subscribe to the channel. And thank you for watching.